Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and as you can see, I have an assortment of cards here on my table. These are all available from Etsy seller and creator HeroicAdventurers, the maker of the Chaos Event deck, otherwise known as the Zargon deck. A funny name considering that they're the EU-sized cards and should be called the Morcar deck, if anything. I am somebody who is attempting to recreate the classic edition of HeroQuest using all of the elements of the US and EU editions in one package, as well as all of the contemporary HeroQuest releases. And to that end, I'm always appreciative of those people who are crafting homebrew solutions to give us components that are like proxies for the newest edition of HeroQuest, but to be used with the classic edition. HeroicAdventurers has a pretty big assortment of items, and I'll absolutely have links to all of this stuff in the description below. Check the description as well for any sort of discount code that I might be able to provide. Of particular interest, visually right away, I really am glad that I was able to acquire this wall of bones that it came with the tile and the standee. I just really enjoy that. I love the look of it. I love how the bone wall looks in the double corridor on my classic board. But without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at what there is on offer. There's actually a lot more than just this as well. This looks like a lot, but there's more than this even on HeroicAdventurers Etsy. So we'll start with the elf spells. If you wanted elf spells, but you wanted EU-sized cards, which is what I'm after for this context, EU-sized cards are smaller and they take up less space. I'm all about that. Then we have that sized down from their US counterpart, which of course this is the size difference, by the way. This is the US poker sized cards, I believe they're called. And then the European sized cards are slightly thinner, but they are noticeably less tall. The elf spells, of course, include double image, disappear, flashback, slow, hypnotic blaze, time stop, deep sleep, and twist wood. And these cards are used, or at least one way, I would say the most popular way that these cards are used, since they come with the Mage of the Mirror US expansion, is when your group of heroes acquires this expansion. When you acquire a Zargon and they reach the expansion, the elf is henceforth able to use any 3 of these 8 spells instead of selecting one of the elements from the game system. So instead of water or air or earth or fire, they'll take 3 of these cards, any 3 that the hero may wish to use out of these 8. And those would be the spells that the elf has for that given quest. And in the next quest, they're able to select an element instead of the elf spells if they wish. They can select one of the elements after the wizard selects his first complement of elemental spells, and then the elf can select their element, and then the wizard can take the rest of the elements. The wizard doesn't use the elf spells, though. Moving on to the next most useful thing, or things, because they're going to tie for me, is going to be the knight skills, the bard spells, and the nature spells. And I'll get into the nature spells in just a moment, but the knight skills are a classic representation of the contemporary HeroQuest Commander of the Guardian Knights, or just knight skill set. I love it. We have Stalwart, we have Shield Block, and we have Knight's Challenge. We have all 3 of the skills that we need to bring the knight into our classic game of HeroQuest. And believe me, I have a knight miniature all ready to go, so this is actually very good for me. Bard spells next. This is giving us Inspiring Tale as well as Healing Song and Lullaby. So we are now able to incorporate the Bard in our classic HeroQuest games using the 2021 rule set for the Bard character, now available to pre-order and use with the game expansion Spirit Queen's Torment from Hasbro Pulse. Next up is the nature spells. The creator went the extra mile with the nature spells. We don't just have 3, we have 8. But this does include the druid spells. So if I can just grab, we have Bear Strength. And I will say this is slightly different than the interpretation of the Druid spell. So this is a little bit different mechanically, but it is nice to have it. And actually, if you're using the EU rule set, it makes a lot more sense to have that little bit of a trade-off than to just give the Druid that much power. We have Forces of Life. We have Pixie. And this is original art on this card. It's not reusing any of the 2021 art. I really, really enjoy it. And mechanically, it works the same as well. But now we also have Cobra Bite, which allows you to attack any one living creature adjacent to you, and then they have to roll combat dice. They'll lose points for each skull rolled because they're being poisoned. But it is ineffective against undead for obvious reasons. We can't poison a skeleton. We have Butterfly Wings. Cast a spell as soon as you suffer damage, even on an enemy's turn. Cancel that damage and move instantly to any unoccupied square in your line of sight. Enchanted Brambles. The spell summons enchanted brambles which rise from the ground and envelop all monsters in your line of sight. On their turn, each monster must roll 1 combat die. And if a skull is rolled, they will neither move nor attack until the end of the sorcerer's next turn. Cheetah Run. The spell allows any one hero to move 14 squares instead of rolling their movement dice. Until the spell is broken, they will move so fast they will not trigger any trap. The spell is broken as soon as the hero performs an action. The spell is then discarded. That's amazing too. Absolutely amazing. You can run around and literally open all of the doors on the board, which is exactly what Morcar and Zargon want you to do. And finally, Crocodile Skin. Cast the spell on any one player. Each time that player has to defend, he will also roll 1 red die. On a roll of 5 or 6, the shields rolled are worth double. The spell is broken if no white shield is rolled. The spell is then discarded. So we have a myriad of interpretations for some of these. Some of them seem pretty clear and obvious to you guys, and some of them I'm sure seem very clear and obvious also to you guys, but you'll interpret them different than the first set of clear and obvious. And that, my friends, that is what HeroQuest is all about. To me, we have this awesome offering of a card that contains the Wall of Magic Ice and Magic Ice tiles ready to be cut into because it is, I suppose this is to make the Frozen Horror ice tiles accessible. I won't need to cut into it though. I already have those tiles. We have something really cool. We have EU-sized cards of the Warhorn of Command, the Ice King's Plate Mail, the Ice King's Spear, and the Spiked Shield. And these are excellent artifacts to have, designed for use with the 2021 edition of the Frozen Horror to kind of make things a little bit easier because it's a notoriously difficult expansion. We have EU versions of these cards as well. I love that very much. Next up, let's take a look at the ice spells. This is a full complement of 9 spells. And I'm not sure what the context is to be able to use these just yet. I'll have to look around and see. But we have ice spells. We have Ice Wall. The spellcaster can create a wall of magic ice which covers 2 squares. It blocks movement but not line of sight. Oh, this is, we're going to see some of these spells as chaos spells in the classic Frozen Horror. That's where some of these are from, actually. But there are some cool things in here as well. Ice Sword. The spell materializes an ice sword which allows the spellcaster to attack with 4 combat dice for the next 3 turns. Mind Freeze. Chill. Just chill, bro. Ice Bridge. Skate. I always thought skate was pretty amusing. Refresh. Rest in Freeze. This has got to be my favorite. If your hero dies, this spell is cast immediately. That hero is now frozen into a tomb of ice. On each turn of his, the hero in the ice tomb must roll 2 red dice. If a total of 10 or more is rolled, the ice melts, and the hero awakens, restoring all of his body points. With a 4 or less, the hero dies anyway. Now, I think that with a 4 or less, so like if you roll a 6 and a 4, that would be a 10. So that, to me, should count. I think the card is trying to say if both of the die are 4 or less. Or I guess you have to roll a 10 by rolling 5s and 6s only. I guess that's how I would interpret that, and then there would be no conflicting information at all. Ice Storm. This spell creates a blizzard of ice that affects an area 2 squares wide by 2 squares long. Each monster and hero in that area are attacked separately by the spellcaster with 3 combat dice. There is no chance to defend. Hate that, but love it if the hero is doing it. And making sure that there's no heroes in there. That would really suck to have your buddy cast that spell. There's plenty of heroes in that area of effect. Next, we have Elite of Chaos. 7 cards to be used. We'll see how. We'll see if we can guess the context here. A tough one. This warrior really looks tougher than usual. He has 8 body points. All right. So I would say if you are homebrewing a game and you are using an sort of like a boss monster, not a named one, or perhaps a named one, but you're not quite sure that you want him to have the exact same, him or her, to have the exact same stats every single time you encounter them, you could draw from this deck in order to sort of randomize that Elite Chaos. Or you could have an optional Elite Chaos monster on your board. The heroes don't have to even encounter it or find them, but if they do, they can combat them, they can draw from this deck, and perhaps there are awesome rewards to be had if your heroes can defeat this optional tough boss. That's just one way that I could think of doing it. You can, of course, use these cards in a number of ways to facilitate your homebrew. Doomguard. This warrior is a member of the Evil Wizard's elite regiment, the Doomguard. Needs only roll 1 black shield to defend against any number of skulls rolled by an attacker. The Doomguard are in the infamous scenario The Dark Company. Ancient Fighter. I like this one a lot. An aura of mystery surrounds this warrior. He always adds 1 skull to his score when attacking and 1 black shield when defending. Love that. Slambo. This warrior is equipped with 2 axes and may attack twice during his turn. A hero attacked by a monster with multiple attacks, however, gets only 1 defend roll against that monster per turn, no matter how many of the monster's combined attacks are directed at the hero. Spellcaster. This warrior is also a novice spellcaster. 2 times he may skip his turn to cast 1 random spell from the Chaos spell deck. Unfortunately, if a summoning spell is drawn, it has no effect and the turn is wasted. Magic Resistant. This warrior seems to be unharmed by magic. If any spell is cast at him, it will have no effect. And Protected by Chaos. This warrior is protected by sorcery. The first attack directed at him will be blocked automatically with no need to roll any defend die. The rule applies to each hero, but it does not affect spells. We've just about covered this entire suite of cards. There's one more that I want to go over left, and that is the Witchlord spells. Yes, Heroic Adventurers actually made just a small, simple deck for the Witchlord, including a character card, which I find very useful. The Witchlord can move 10 squares, attack 5 dice, defend 6 dice, has 5 body and 5 mind. And of course, the first time the Witchlord appears, he can move 1 square and attacks with 2 dice. We get some instructions on the back of his character card. This is a set of new spells for the Witchlord. Replace all of his chaos spells if you are playing with the North American version of the game. Use this card as a reference on which spells to use as the Witchlord appears. In the game system, the first time the heroes meet the Witchlord in Barak Tor, he will be able to only use the following spells: Army of Dead, Fear of Death, Death Puppet, and Death Flame. When they return to Barak Tor, Army of Dead, Fear of Death twice, Death Puppet, Death Flame, Wall of Bone, and Screaming Spectre. And in Return of the Witchlord, he can use all 8 spells in this set. So, awesome. Let's see what these 8 spells are. And of course, these would be easily homebrewable, perhaps absorbed by a magic user who is able to learn more than just the standard game system elements or elf spells. Army of Dead. Spectral Rings. Death Flame. Poisonous Breath. I don't think his breath is poisonous. I think he's just been asleep that long. You know what I mean? Fear of Death. Screaming Spectre. Death Puppet. This one lasts until the sorcerer dies. My goodness. And Wall of Bone. And that comprises the Witchlord deck. Really awesome. I hope that you will go check these out. Check out my video as well on the Chaos Event deck, which I have given an overview of right here on HeroQuest. And there are yet more offerings that I must acquire from this seller. So do not worry, I will be reviewing more products from them very soon. And they have things in the works. I don't think I can tell you exactly what they are, but rest assured, they are exciting for just about any fan of HeroQuest US or EU based. Thank you very much for watching. Comment anything you like down below. Check out the links in the description, and I'll see you next time. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Brave heroes. Onward.